how far down do these permaculture ponds go in the summer when there's a drought and when it's really hot? Somebody asked me this yesterday, and I thought, oh, I got to about 2 paragraphs and I thought, no, I'm going to have to do a video about this to explain it all properly. So I'm just going to feed the fish first, because I might be going in there in a bit and I don't want them to be hungry when I go in there. You might see them if you're lucky. And then I always put some fish food in this little bit here, because the younger fish tend to go in there. In that little bit behind the island there. Just give them a minute and they should start coming up. Feed them every couple of days usually in the summertime. Right. Now these ponds don't have liners. They're designed to catch the rainwater, and this one catches the rainwater from all this area here, and also going up this top bit of the main path as well. So it's quite a big area, maybe 1/4 of an acre or something. It just drains all the water from into here, but of course you do need rain for that. So when you don't get rain, then it sort of gradually goes down, and of course that's seeping into the water table and keeping the water table high, so it's helping the whole land. But really it's a question of having them deep enough to be able to cope with that. Now this one is the most established pond. It's been here for about 6 years, and it goes down the slowest. And it also, when it rains, it actually fills right up to the top, goes through its overflow pipe, and it works properly. But the other ones aren't so established. The whole side of the pond, which is like the biggest bit of the pond, is really deep. It goes down to about 9 feet deep, and it has this big sort of area is 9 feet deep, and that's going to keep plenty of water in there even in a big drought. But if there is a severe drought, then this bit over here largely disappears. It just sort of gradually comes down and becomes like a little valley, and then about there somewhere there's like a shelf, and it rarely goes deeper than that. But I'll just show you the overflow a minute. This is the overflow pipe here, so when the pond is full, water pours out through this pipe and goes down over there through a little wiggly valley system which goes into another pond. But the water is still touching the pipe. It's not pouring down it, but it's still touching it, so it's barely gone down at all, and that's really good. This one, when it first went in for the first few years, the water used to drop dramatically, particularly on the first year. But then the clay seems to plug itself up with more little microscopic particles, and some kind of process takes place, and it becomes more water resistant the longer it's been there. But of course you must make it with clay subsoil, not with topsoil, because topsoil is water drains through it easily, but the clay subsoil just seems to, you know, hold it all in, and that's really good. This one's really well established. Even this little shallow inlet is still here. It's not as deep as it was, but it's still got water in it, and it's still here. But this was always one of the first to go, but now it has to be dry for quite a long time before it disappears completely. And just here we've got a little Bath asparagus flowering stem coming up. That's a really rare native plant, and we've got a nice little clump of it here. It likes kind of damp woodland, so when it flowers it gets about so tall, all the leaves have already died back, and it has these greeny kind of white flowers which are really unusual. It's in the Ornithogalum family. It is quite essential to have these deep bits for extreme droughts, and especially for the first few years whilst it's in, before it's established, so that the fish have got somewhere to go if the water gets really, really low. The iris that the geese pulled up that I've planted all along this island are doing really well. This one's one that they didn't pull up, and it's got some nice flowers coming up, but I can see the one has drifted off again, so I might go in and get that. Ooh. And in doing so, I can show you the depth of this bit, which is quite a shallow, really. The deep bit sort of starts over there. So it's about here, maybe there when it's completely full, and then there's quite a big shelf here, which is like a shallow area, which is going to be all covered in marginal iris, which could grow to 3 foot deep. So they could stretch right out to here, make a great habitat for loads of wildlife. and then there's this sort of ledge comes out all along the pond. Now, if it's very, very low, this ledge can be exposed, but it's not exposed every year, just if it's a very long dry summer and a drought. And then from somewhere over here, it gets suddenly deep. Just edge carefully towards it. There. So here it starts getting extremely much more deep at a kind of angle like that. And then out there it would be much, much deeper. But I think I've got to find somewhere to plant this wild iris. The fish can swim extremely quickly, so they just dart out of the way, and you notice they stop feeding because I'm here. But I suppose if I stayed here long enough, they'd probably come up again. There's one feeding over there. And so this whole bit is very deep. All these sides come straight in at 45-degree angle, straight down to deep water. And then you've got the deep bit sort of comes up to the edge of these little headlands here. And it goes quite deep for the first bit of this bit round this side of the island as well. So the fish have got quite a big place to swim around if it gets very low, but most years it just doesn't. Most years you get some rain to top it up, it's just certain years. So now we've had quite a bit of rain recently, and there's been thunderstorms and all sorts, so how come that hasn't filled it up? Well, that is because you need the ground to become soaked, then there needs to be enough surplus water to run off the ground and find its way here. If that doesn't happen, then the ponds don't go up and the ground becomes a bit wetter, the plants get watered, but it doesn't find its way to the pond. You need kind of continuous heavy rain for that to happen. So the rain over the last few weeks has been heavy, but it's been showers, and it's been not enough for it to reach the pond in any significant quantity or for any significant length of time. And if it does, then the ponds fill up really dramatically quickly. But one thing is that if it goes down very low and the edges sort of crack, then it's going to take much longer to fill up. If there's rain, then the pond fills up with the rain and then goes down again as it soaks into the parched ground. So it's not like that at the moment, but if it's very dry in the middle of the summer, that can happen. So at the moment there's very little exposed here, and all the sides are still wet and there's no cracks or anything. But then this pond's established. I think we should go and have a look at the other pond that's only been there for 2 years. Here, quite a different story. This pond's only been in 2 years, and when it's completely full, it should come to this depth here. It's never got that high. It's got to kind of this high, but it usually settles to about this kind of height. But it every time there's loads of rain, then and it gets higher, it goes rapidly down to this kind of height. But then it sort of gains a little bit of height over time, like the other one used to do. So it hasn't quite reached the top yet. And when it goes down, it sort of goes down more quickly, just like the other one used to do. I think it was about 4 years before the other one kind of established properly. And this whole bit of the pond here was all dug by hand, so it's not very deep. And this bit disappears if there's a prolonged drought. This little corner is deeper because originally this was the only pond there was. And there's this little bit round here is a bit deeper. When it's full, the water would be about here, I suppose, but at the moment it settles to about here somewhere. When it dries out, of course, I can't go around it in the boat, and but it does give more shortcuts to places. But of course, having the deep reservoir in the main bit of the pond means that this doesn't matter at all. As it goes down deeper, it tends to slow down as you get deeper down into the main bit of the pond down there. But on some years, this bit disappears completely, and it's just mud, with just like a little puddle in that deep bit down there. This bit sort of disappearing already. You can see the ground here exposed. When it's first exposed, it's like this just wet mud, but then it sort of sets and cracks. And the drier it is, of course, the more rain you'll need to replenish it up again. This pond catches the rain from a bigger area, but it's a much bigger pond, so it fills up just as quickly as the other one when the rain actually does come. Here it's just a little channel that gets gradually deeper, and to get around this way. This side upwards was all the dug by hand bit, and then all this side was all the dug by digger bit, but these two wooded islands were cut by hand, but then the digger just did them on this side. And this is like the last bit of the shallow inlet around the island, and then somewhere down here it gets much deeper. And I'll just go edge carefully again towards the ledge. Hello. Oh. And somewhere down here, yeah, it starts to get deeper. And there, yeah, see big ledge down there. Yeah? Right straight down. And this is like goes down to 18 feet. Whoa! As you hear, it goes straight down. Very little marginal shelf here. On this bit, there will be the subtropical garden. There'll just be a sort of thin strip for marginal plants. So we've got this massive reservoir of deep water here. And it is much colder as well. When you get on this bit, it's really shallow and warm. But there it's quite cold. So whatever the drought is, however bad a drought we get, the fish would have this huge area to swim about in and be safe from any drying out. When it's full, I imagine it would be about to here when it's completely full. So these wild iris that are planted last year are really well established, and you can see that they're normally growing under the water, but when the water's actually full and comes up to here, they'll be fine because they can grow into 3 foot depth of water. They're really good. But everything over this side, these cultivated plants, these are garden islands, and then this side wooded islands. And it's nice to have these little wooded islands and channels, but yeah, they're the first to go if it gets it really dry. So normally you get a wet spell in the summer, but sometimes it just goes on and on with just the odd heavy shower or thunderstorm, and then the ponds just don't fill up, but then they do in the autumn. But that's not usual. Quite a lot of years the pond stays more or less full all year. It really depends on the year. These are cultivated iris, but they're yellow. They look like the wild iris, but they don't get anything like as tall, and they flower a bit sooner. And they're doing really well. I don't know what type they are because somebody gave us a clump of it from their pond, and it's just spread into a big clump, and we've given loads of bits away as well. And just over here are these ragged robin. These are quite rare in the wild, but they're very common here. They love the clay soil and they love growing places that are damp, and they're really only just getting going at the moment. Loads of buds on them, related to the campions, and they have these little feathery petals, and loads of them. We get them in the lawn, we get them everywhere, and they get them sort of along footpaths in fields. They're like everywhere, but they are classed as being quite rare. This whole bit, this whole big shallow shelf is really quite warm, and it is really good to have these big shallow areas because they're just really good for little fish to breed in, for amphibians, for water plants, all things like this. Even though they do disappear in a drought, that is kind of nature and it's a natural process. So it's a shame when they disappear, but having the big bits as well, that ensures that you've got a decent amount of water and a decent amount of surface area for oxygen to get into the water so that the fish will survive in the worst of the droughts. But yeah, most years this doesn't disappear, but just certain years. But it's catered for by having the great big bit. But whilst it's here, if it's a hot day like this, it's really nice to come in here and it's just nice and warm. It's not like a shock to the system, as sometimes things swim up and swim around and it's a bit weird. It's like and you can't always identify what they are. But apart from that, it's nice, really nice warm water, warmer than a swimming pool, and the shallow water just heats up really quickly in the sunshine, and just like a rock pool on the beach really. And you've got this nice kind of water to put your feet in and to go in. It's really good. Now we're going to have a little look at a pond that we only put in during the winter. It's not even been there 6 months, to compare it to these ones. Oh. See, this one's lost its water completely, but it is very shallow, but it's gone down deeper than both of the other ponds, and there's just a little bit here which has some mud in it still, but the rest of it is all dried up. But of course, as soon as the rain comes back, it fills right up again, and it's a little bit depressing on the first year. You think, oh, it's not holding any water, but It does, as long as it's built with clay, subsoil, it will fill with water. It just takes a little while. If this was deeper, if I hadn't built this island here and I had a deep bit, it would still have water in it. But I only wanted this as a shallow pond really for sticklebacks and amphibians, really things that can cope with the pond drying out. So it's just going to be a little pond here that I could just jump across the island to. And it's not even finished yet really. It's not got the topsoil there, it's not got any trees planted. It's just got like a path going round, and then you can you can interchange between the paths by jumping on the stepping stone. You know, like some alder trees here and like some swampy kind of plants and things, and it's going to be a nice little woodland path here. But for now we'll go back to the other pond. So this is back at the bigger pond, and you can see here that the water comes up to here. You can kind of see like a little tide mark, and when it's full, of course, the boat will have to go back a bit further, but it sort of just gradually settles at a higher level. So I've got all these water iris which I've got to plant somewhere. These are some I planted last year, and they're establishing nicely. So the water comes up to about here at the moment. When it's full, it will be about there. So I'll just put some more in around here. You see all this white stuff on the water here? It's all little willow seeds. It just looks really weird, but it's just willow seeds, little fluffy willow seeds that blow in the wind. So I'll just stick some of these in here. If you have a pond with a liner or with one of those fiberglass ponds, you generally use those little pond pots. You put hessian in and then the soil in and plant them in that. But in a pond like this, it's just you can plant them straight in the fresh mud, just like it was a natural pond or a river. And if I put them too deep, the geese pull them up, so I put them in this exposed mud. It's like perfect for them, and then by the time the water fills up, they'll probably be established to some extent. So just find a nice place where there's some squishy mud, and just plonk them in. This whole end of the pond isn't really landscaped yet. The bottom bit is, but this is the least landscaped bit. So here, going up there, there's a terrace of orchard at the top, and then this cliff's going to be split into two terraces, so that when the water's full, there'd only be like a foot cliff, and then a terrace of orchard with one row of orchard trees, and then behind that another sort of 6-foot terrace with another terrace of orchard trees, and then behind that the main orchard behind. So you've got 3 levels of orchard coming down here. Find some nice squishy mud here. There's some, and that should be all right there. But any that drift off, I'll just have to reclaim. Maybe put it in a bit more. There's quite a few water plants establishing themselves here. They do seem to come after a while. If I come a bit more over here, yeah, loads of squishy mud here. So just put it kind of there, and it should just root in really nicely there. As long as the geese don't notice it. Right, so this whole area is shallow, but not as shallow as the inlet bits. And you've got this whole level here, which gradually sort of gets deeper as you get this way, and cooler as well. And it's yeah, sort of carries on around here. Where you are now will be the headland bit, and that will be cut down lower as well. So all of the bits will have no big cliffs coming out of the water. But this is how the digger cut it, because the main purpose of having the digger was just to have dig the hole and then I could landscape round it. So here, this path will come down to the water level and have different bits splitting to go into the different levels of orchard. And this bit we call the Pillars of Hercules, like after the Gibraltar and the Moroccan side, where you've got the narrow entrance into the Mediterranean. So this, we call this the Pillars of Hercules, and this is the gateway into the deeper part of the pond. So this is going to be a wooded island here. This bit's going to be, the water will come up to about here, and then here you'll have like a sloping woodland. All we've got to do on this side now is just put some topsoil and some trees, and then that'll be finished. And then over here somewhere it starts to become deep, but it's not a sudden drop, it's more like that. And it just slopes into this very deep water, and all that area there is a reservoir of really deep water. The whole top bit there going round the headland was going to be really narrow and just a little inlet. But the people who dug the hole for me, they said that they wouldn't be able to turn the digger around in there, and if I wanted it really narrow, I'd have to like hire 2 diggers. So I had to make a decision, and I decided, okay, just make it a bit bigger, but then we've got to compensate and redesign the orchard, so we're going to have the orchard in 2 terraces instead of 1, because it was going to be 1 terrace sloping down, and then the pond up there was going to be like half as thick. But now with it being a bit bigger, we're going to have to like do it differently, so that's why I'm going to now do the 2 levels of orchard. But of course that will all have to be done by hand, so that might take a while. Here, where I get into the sunlight, it gets much warmer suddenly here. And here, this is where it suddenly starts to get deeper about here, and this just slopes down into the water like that. And because this will be the subtropical garden here, those will be the islands, and whoa, and that's it's kind of weird. It's like warm and cold in different places, and that's where this big reservoir here is for the fish. The inlets at the other end sometimes dry out, but this bit has never dried out so far, although it's only been in 2 years, so a really dry year it might, but this, it goes straight down to 18 feet deep, and this will stay here probably within a year without rain, or maybe even more. It's a safe reservoir for the fish, so it's always good to have this. And of course this pond does have a vast area that it catches the rain from, so it always gets filled up really quickly when finally the heavy rain does come. It's cold hot. Clear the shelf again. Right, so a really good preventative measure to stop your pond drying out too much is to put the pond somewhere that's naturally wet. When you first deciding what's going to go where, always pick the area that's the wettest and put the pond there, because it's going to dry out much more slowly if it's there. And if rainwater flows that way naturally, or if the majority of it does, then it's going to be much easier to guide the rest of the water to that pond, you know. It's good not to put them in controversial places or high up. It's good to put them so they're already sunk down in the water table. This pond is naturally kind of boggy bit. Before there was kind of like a bog here in places, so I started at the bog and sort of worked upwards, so it should catch water here naturally, and it naturally did collect water. When the water's low, it's quite a good time to sort of see how other water plants are doing. There's a water plantain there, and I think that's some kind of water iris, and they're doing really well. If the water gets really low and it starts to crack there, I could just splash them, and that sort of does them, they're all right with that. But they don't like to dry out, but they don't mind the water going down a bit in dry weather. Hope you liked today's video. I hope I've answered all your questions, but if you have any questions about this, please just ask me and I'll answer them. Just ask me in the comments. And yeah, it's kind of warm there, cold there, warm there. That's really strange. But if you press the little me down there somewhere, you can see all my other videos. And please like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.